Hello and welcome to another episode of the Travis Parry Show. We are taking the show into a new direction. I have spent this entire year training as a financial hypnotherapist. I'm now certified, and I'm going to be sharing with you success stories for really this whole season of those who have been through the process, who have seen results that have, yes, absolutely helped them financially grow their business, not lose their balance, get past fears, grief, challenges that they face in their marriage and their health, and everything that's related that you had no idea was actually related to money, because it's all right here. It's really all in your own psychology. So buckle up, get ready. Today's podcast episode is about a guy that I will just call Jay. Now, Jay is an amazing man. He has really had a very successful career, but he's not really where he wants to be right now. He wants to grow, he wants to scale, he wants to 10x his career, and he's really struggled in these past few years to make that breakthrough. What Jay has done is he spent years developing himself out with the Maxwell Institute, which I have great respect for the Maxwell Institute. They essentially craft leaders, help them to speak, help them with their leadership abilities. And it's a phenomenal place to learn to speak and speak about leadership and really become part of that Maxwell family. Well, having his experience, 20 years plus in business, it has not really pushed him to the point where he was ready to strike out and get past some of these major fears that he had about growing his career. Now, he's tried coaching, he's tried other help, and just has not been able to really 10x it, really grow it, really scale it. And his skills as a speaker and quite honestly as a facilitator just made him feel trapped. I know a lot of people out there, a lot of business owners, you have something, you've built it, you've grown it, but you really want to be that thought leader. You want to be able to step out on stage, start a podcast, write a book, do the things that are really growing and scaling you and even your business, or just take it to the next level and, retire the business or just keep running it while you're growing and scaling your own thought leadership. Well, that's exactly where Jay was. And the hard part about all this is a lot of people think that business doesn't connect with your family, has no relationship to your health, and all that baloney, but it's absolutely not true. My first book, Achieving Balance, talks all about how, obviously if you're an overworked workaholic, it absolutely affects everything you do. But the stress of not becoming the person that you want to be can absolutely eat at you as well. And it has been eating at Jay and his sweet wife, who I've met and done some work with. And I love them both. They're incredible people. But what I've found is that this is starting to really put some pressure on their relationship. While Jay doesn't want to leave his current condition, his position, and be able to grow his career, it's actually creating tension and pressure on his wife, who sees how stressed out he is. Because in the position that he's at, he's actually getting a lot of stress. He's getting a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of things that are piled onto his plate more and more and more. I know you can feel that as a business owner. I know you can feel that, if you're a manager, if you're a C-suite exec, that sometimes the buck stops with you, and it's stopping with Jay. And in fact, a lot of responsibilities are continually piling up. And so she's been asking him, please go do this thing. You're really great at it. And this is really what you ought to be doing. It's so fulfilling for him. But he just can't get past his fear. Now, most of us have some kind of fear, some kind of limiting belief that holds us back. I have talked about this ad nauseum on my podcast. I've brought people on to talk about it in their positions. But I'm going to be focusing more on the 100+ clients that I've worked with in this year alone that have seen incredible breakthroughs with financial hypnotherapy. All right, so I'm Dr. Parry. I am a financial hypnotherapist. I help business owners to grow and scale their businesses while also having balance, better marriages, and better health. All right, that's exactly what I do. And I'm here to tell you a little bit more about what Jay did. So we started working together and did some hypnotherapy. We found that the root cause through something I call the deep dive, we found that in this deep dive, what I do is I help business owners figure out what the subconscious limiting beliefs are. Now, this is where most coaches stop. And I would refer you to my previous episodes about, mastering the mind, okay, and 10xing your business, because that is exactly what my next book is really going to be about, is mastering this mind, this subconscious. And what we found is in this deep dive, this session that I do, which by the way, if you want to join us, there'll be a button below. Please join me on a deep dive and I can help you have very, very similar results. I guarantee you we will at least find what is stopping you. And so for Jay, what we found is this fear of failure. In the deep dive, we uncovered this fear of failure was really the subconscious block that he was struggling with, that he's had for a very, very long time. Now, most men that I work with, I find that they typically have some kind of fear of failure from 2 or 3 things. Sports, they underperformed, or, something happened where they, didn't do it right and somebody yelled at them, a coach, a parent, et cetera, a teammate, all right? 2, it might be actually a parent, a grandparent, a family member, typically a parent that has subconsciously passed on their limiting beliefs to their child. And that is where I find probably 90% of people, okay? But for men, there's kind of this 50-50 where it's between sports and parents. But there's also another one that we typically, you might not think about a whole lot, all right? And that's school, just kids at school. And that's where I found Jay. So he had this fear of failure, which was actually rooted in this fear of not being loved. And that was rooted in being left out a lot. He was alone. And, so we kind of uncovered where this fear was coming from. Interestingly enough, with financial hypnotherapy, it's very psychological, it's very subconscious. I also find out what these limiting thoughts and beliefs are doing to the body. So we found that with Jay, there's this pain, and there was a pain in his left eye and also in his chest, tightness in his chest. Okay, that is not a good sign. If you're experiencing tightness in your chest, you do a Google search and know it might be something with your heart. And there's a lot of physiological things you don't want to ignore. And I am not a physician. I am not a medical professional by any means. I've talked ad nauseum, my father passing away of a heart attack at a month shy of 50. Okay, so I'm very, very aware of signs and signals now about heart health. And what we found is that when individuals have these fears, they tend to have a physiological response that is caused by the fear. And I'll explain how this worked with Jay through this hypnotherapeutic session that we did. So the chest tightness was a 6 out of 10. It's relative, it's subjective to the individual, but 6 out of 10 is pretty, that's painful. If you had a 6 out of 10 pain, that's up there, right? And this is just induced by him thinking about this fear. It turns out that this fear that resided about him being left alone and not loved, as we got into the actual session, this came from school. This came from him being bullied. He was big. He said he had big ears and big feet, and so people would call him all sorts of names, like elephant or Dumbo. So this is or retard. Okay, these kinds of names, raise your hand if you've been bullied. Like, we all have probably some issue where we stand out. We're different. And kids are ruthless, especially in the public schools, trying to get attention, especially men, like boys, they're trying to one up the other boys. And it does not help if they bully in front of women, or girls, right? It destroys their ego, makes them feel inferior to these other peacocks, as we call them. Okay. And peacocking is real. You can look it up. I'm not going to go into human development, but I will simply say this was devastating for him. He was teased for being bigger. He sat on the far side of the classroom. Kids picked on him constantly. And then there was one time that he remembered where he was on his way home from school and he just got beat up. He got the tar kicked out of him. That was a very painful and emotional moment that he shared that, some of us can relate to if you've ever been bullied. It's interesting. A little side note. I do storytelling at night for my kids, and, I tell them about stories, and on Sundays I do family history, and I tell them about me. I tell them about my family, and sometimes my wife will chime in with her stories of her side of the family. And my 13-year-old daughter the other night said, "Dad, I remember that story where you stood up for that girl that was getting pushed around at school, and you stood up to that boy." And I totally forgot that I told her that story, because he's turned his attention on me and he started to beat me up. And I hit him in the face. I hit him hard. And nobody stood up to him like that before. And because of that, we both went to the principal's office. The principal knew he was a known name. I had never been in trouble in my life at school for the vice principal's office. That's always never a good sign, right? And unfortunately, that kid, he turned to me before the principal came in and said, "This is my last straw. I'm going to get kicked out of this school unless you tell them it didn't happen. You need to tell them this didn't happen." He was like trying to bully me while I was going to tell the teacher. And I said, "Absolutely not. I'm telling the truth. I'm telling them exactly what happened, and I have witnesses." And I did. I told the truth. I told the vice principal what had happened, and stood up in that situation, and he got expelled from the school. I saw him later in high school, and everything was fine. He learned his lessons that apparently he needed to learn in 5th grade or 4th grade. So, little side note, I think it's interesting. We've probably all of us have felt bullied at some point in our life. It's whether maybe we were the bully, okay, maybe we gave the bullying out and we feel guilty about it, or maybe we received it. And so, yeah, there were times where I had to stand up for myself, and I feel for Jay in this situation. So listen, in this situation, if I was a marriage and family therapist, a counselor, a psychologist, I would likely help this individual feel normal, just like I did. Right? I just shared that story about I've been bullied. Maybe you've been bullied, right? And I'd help them feel normal, normalize the behavior, and then we'd move on with actions to help them cope with. That is typically what most therapists will do. And granted, that is a resource to cope with. But for most people, the coping is short term. And if they have a mechanism by which they cope with stress or grief or other things, they're simply coping. They're not healing from it. They're not dealing with it. But at that point, I was able to get Jay into a trance-like state in hypnotherapy. And instead of just coping with it, we're able to work through this entire limiting belief. Hypnotherapy, I'm not going to go through all the details, but in the subconscious mind, we're able to tell the truth to ourselves. We don't lie to ourselves in the subconscious. The subconscious can't do that. The subconscious recognizes what's a lie, and it recognizes what's the truth. And for Jay, he knew that he was loved because people told him all the time, his family, etc. Yet at school, he's had this bullying experience, which left a huge mark. And even though, He's a, not by any means somebody who is very overweight or obese or ginormous. He doesn't he's a good looking guy. He's absolutely healthy and all these things. But now, still in his mind, that subconscious belief system is stuck. It's likely that you have some things that are stuck as well. And you're thinking, well, how does bullying have anything to do with me growing my business? Well, it literally had everything to do for Jay. Because after we went through the whole process, I was able to help him in his subconscious mind, not just cope with what had happened, these traumatic events, but actually work through them and allow the mind to reprogram what had happened and heal from it, not just cope with it. And that's the beauty of hypnotherapy. Okay, that is the beauty of what happened. And after that, he was able to replace this fear of failure with absolute confidence. Seeing him at the end of this session was glorious. It was incredible to see the change, the energy, the direction, and the enlightenment, the ideas that just flowed to his mind. I will never forget, because in this session, at the end of this session, he determined that, obviously he's going to speak more and he's going to ask for speaking engagement. He's going to do these things. How many of you have spoken or have great skills to be a thought leader, but you just are afraid? You're afraid to step out on stage. Do you know the number one most fearful thing for any person in the world to do is speak publicly? Why? Why? Because they're afraid they're going to fail. Because they're afraid while they're recording a podcast that might be live, right? Or stepping out on a stage where people are hearing them, that they might say boogers instead of bullying. I'm telling you this because I'm way past this, guys. I'm way past it. And it only comes when you get past what's here in your mind. Those limiting thoughts and belief systems, when they're able to be healed from instead of just continually coping with. And if you don't do the coping strategy right that the therapist has taught you or the coach has taught you, then it's probably not going to stick. And this is why most people will say, hey, I'm willing. I want to go through a hypnotherapy session with you because I know I've tried so many things and it just has never stuck long term. I'll go through a cycle where maybe fear pushes me to do things for a while. And so I'm successful and then I become successful and then I kind of fall back into it. Well, that's because that cycle of fear is pushing you forward, but slamming you right back to where you started from. That's why a lot of businesses, they grow and they flop, grow and they flop. Or why individuals can't stay on a certain lifestyle change. We call it diets, right? And they go from diet to diet to diet to diet. And they can't ever lose the weight permanently. It just is always stuck on them, emotionally speaking. I will do an episode later about a weight loss hypnotherapy, which is phenomenal. But back to this, the fear of speaking in front of people is real, but it's really in the subconscious mind. When you can get past the fears, past the subconscious issues of speaking and becoming a thought leader, putting thoughts out on the internet through social media, blogs, books. When you can get past those things, you can inspire people. You can be a thought leader too. And this is what Jay found. Now he's speaking, he's facilitating workshops, and he and his wife, who haven't been on a vacation without their children their entire married life, are going on vacations. They've got Portugal and New Zealand in their plans. And I'm so excited for them because they've just been stuck. It's been affecting their marriage. This all of these fears of Jay not doing the thing that he knows he's trained to do. What's also brilliant, the biggest takeaway from all of this was during the hypnotherapy session, what was stuck in his brain is this idea about consulting. He'd never thought about it. Now you consultants out there are like, man, I do this since day one. Well, fine. But for him, that had just never crossed his mind. And he told me like, I want to consult. And I thought, well, that just kind of goes with speaking, right? Isn't that what? No, I just wanted to speak and do workshops, but consulting, I had never thought of. This was a brand new thought to him that happened while he was in the hypnotherapy session. And with that, he is securing, right now, he's securing a consulting gig that will 3x his income, okay? And probably a whole lot more than what he's ever going to expect, because that will lead to other gigs. But, just right after the session, he took action and contacted this contact that had reached out to him a long time ago that he'd neglected because of fear, right? And now has this relationship that's building his new career, his new direction, that's going to help improve he and his wife's marriage. I know for a fact, I've seen the research. My wife and I just went away for a weekend trip without the kids. We do this 2 or 3, sometimes 4 times a year. Why? Because we invest in this relationship. We invest in it. When I see business owners, professionals who do not take time to date, take time to go away with their spouse, I know it's taking a toll. I've seen the numbers, I've seen the research data, and I've seen it with my own clients, right? And Jay is no different. They love each other, they're in a great relationship, but it is taking a toll. It's not allowing them to be who they are. And my kids, like when we go away, I tell them all the time, like, hey, they're from ages 3 to 22 now, and I'm like, hey, listen, like. Thank you for supporting us, the older ones that usually watch the youngers. And the youngers are like, oh, we'll miss you. Like, yeah, but this is good for mom and dad. And we need this time away. It is just basic marriage 101, right? Time together increases your relationship as long as you love each other. Increases your relationship more than anything else. You need to make the time. This is why I called my business back in 2020 when I had to, decide what was my LLC going to be called. We called it the Make Time Institute. It's now Balanced Growth Inc. Because I'm here to grow your business while keeping that balance so that you can make time for these other things, for the things that matter the most, your health, your spirituality, your relationship with your spouse and your children. I know those are your top 3 or 4. I've done the research. I know where we stand. And Jay is now able to take that action and is taking action. Now listen, if you're like, that's too good to be true, this couldn't happen. I'm telling you, this happened with basically 2 sessions, a deep dive, okay, and 1 session in hypnotherapy. And if you think this can't happen for you, that you can't triple your business, and there's just no way, like you can't do this with me in 1 session, Dr. Parry, try me, okay? Sign up for the deep dive. It costs you literally nothing but your time, okay? So make time for yourself. Listen, Tony Robbins talks about this all the time, and I echo it, but we are so easy to look at that shiny object and be like, I'm going to do a marketing app, and I'm going to do AI for my sales, and I'm going to invest in those systems. I'll invest in consultants to come and tell me about, how my employees are working together, and I'll invest in, ways to better improve our product or service. Of course you are. Those are all systems. But the reality is only 10% of success in business is actually your business systems, from sales, marketing, fulfillment, or operations. Those 4. Those are the 4 areas of your business, okay? But 90% of your success is right between your ears. It was for Jay, and it has been for hundreds of others over 100 that I've worked with just this year alone. We're only halfway through. I am so excited to work with business owners. If you want, a story like Jay's, if you want to be featured in my next book, maybe on a podcast, you want to be a success story for my coaching and hypnotherapy, then try me. Okay. Here's what it takes. You need to be a business owner or an independent professional who can invest in yourself, who has the time, allotted, like you can decide what to do with your time. This might not make sense for everybody. Okay. But to qualify for this, you really should be a business owner dad, or be married to a business owner dad and you want to do this together. Okay. You as spouses, I've done this many times and it absolutely is effective. And I'll do more episodes about that later. Okay. How this works for marriage as well. So if you're a business owner and you want to grow your business, scale your business, and you've tried lots of things, okay, you've tried the systems and maybe you've got to a certain point, but you know you're not up to your potential. And like Jay, you just need a breakthrough. You need to get through. You need to figure this out together. I can help you to do that. We will do the deep dive. And in the deep dive, it's 90 minutes. I will walk you through what your fears or blocks are. And I can help you because, I don't have your own biases. I'm really good at this. This is a skill that I've developed for the last 20 years of asking questions, probing, really asking the right questions to figure out where you are at. Okay. So sign up for that deep dive and I will meet with you. It takes 90 minutes. Schedule that on the link below. Okay. You get more details about it. I'll even have a podcast for what are all the stages of hypnotherapy if you want to listen to that as a podcast below that on that next screen. And then what we can do together is we can decide, does hypnotherapy make sense? Okay. Would this be good for you? I can tell you how we do this. I can tell you what it would look like for you. It's different for everybody. So I can't just blanket statement tell you everything, but I will give you this one guarantee. You sign up for the deep dive. And if you have an open mind and you're a business owner who wants to grow and scale and you want to keep that balance with your family, those are the things I really care about. If that's you and you're going to show up with an open mind, I guarantee you we will locate that fear. We will locate that subconscious belief system. And maybe it's grief, maybe it's anger, maybe it's something else that's deeper than fear that's related to it, okay, which is typically the case. We will uncover that. I will uncover that for you. I guarantee it. And if I'm not a good fit to work with you, I'll be the first person to tell you. And if we are, we can outline the steps from there. All right, so do that. Sign up for the deep dive. Be like Jay. Acknowledge that even though you have the highest training from the Maxwell Leadership Institute, okay, so much respect for them, that if your psychology is blocked and if you're stuck, it is in your own head. And I can help you to finally end this craziness, okay, and get past these subconscious belief systems. And I'm excited to work with you. So if that's you, sign up right below, click the deep dive button. Let's go. I'm Dr. Parry and hoping to hear from you and see that you're listening to more of these episodes. I've got a bunch more to go and I will be releasing them the rest of this year with those who will come on the show, tell us their story, or for me, I will break these stories down and be able to give you some insights that might be related to your situation so we can help you better with the balanced growth incorporated here. Again, I'm Dr. Parry. Until next time, remember, live life on purpose.